Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you. Hey, 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 Robert. Hey, Snowman. Hey, Bernadette. Telling everyone to like and share, like and share. Meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel right here, right here. And like and share the show. Help us with the algorithm, everybody. Progressive shows algorithms are suppressed, and that is becoming more and more of a challenge for those of us who are independent and who are on the progressive end of the spectrum. And you'll see as more and more people are buying these very popular media companies for their own political ends, it's going to be tough, but we can make it through. You just have to push shows like mine and other independent shows too. So please help us and like and share the show and like and subscribe here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please go to at Santita J on X and Santita Jackson IG on Instagram. Let's see what else. The Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. There's so many. Always look up Santita Jackson. And so, everybody, remember in the chat, we can disagree without being disagreeable. I want us to be respectful, even as we disagree. I don't mind real robust disagreement. Don't mind it at all. I welcome it. But I want us, and having said that, remember to be respectful. Be respectful. The only way you can be disinvited from being part of this community, this family, is to not be respectful. That's all I'm asking. And, underneath all of that is a whole lot of love. There you go. So let's get right to it. As we talk about this incredible meeting with Trump, President Trump, that is who he is, and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and the top generals from all around the world meeting at Quantico, where the CIA is headquartered. What were they doing there? And what did Pete Hegseth say? Secretary Hegseth, wow. Some people are saying that it was, quite the, off the cuff rant. They said this is the most loser stuff I've ever seen. I'm using a euphemism there. But he really went off on that which is woke, dudes in dresses, climate change worship, and fat soldiers. Can you believe he said that? In front of a president who has his weight challenges. What about that? During the address, according to this Common Dreams report, which U.S. military leaders from all around the world were summoned to attend in Quantico, Virginia, Hegseth rattled off a long list of culture war grievances that he claimed had weakened the American military, which he asserted is forced to follow, quote, stupid rules of engagement, close quote, that limit members of the armed forces. For the president's portion, he talked about using our troops to really practice and hone their skills on the streets of the United States. So, what does that mean? What does that mean for Posse Comitatus, which is an outgrowth of the Civil War? And I need, of course, Mark Fancher and Mike Ferner to explain that more in depth. But just a cursory understanding of it is that after the Civil War in the United States, it was decided we're not going to use our troops against Americans anymore. Well, that is not what we heard today. And now in Chicago, ICE are on the south side. The south and west sides of Chicago are predominantly African American. You also have a growing number of Hispanics, of Latinos. But this is where Black people live. And just 5 blocks from my home, there was a massive sweep at a building, an apartment building, that was surrounded, and they cleared everybody out. Now the president is going to deploy the military to Chicago and other cities to protect ICE. There's so much to talk about. But the president, you said, okay, we're going to use our troops to practice on Americans. But Pete Hegseth went in on what did he call the woke stuff. Women, it's very clear he does not want women in uniform. There's so much to unpack here. Mike Ferner, Veterans for Peace, Attorney Mark Fancher. Where shall I begin? Let me start with you, Mike Ferner, Veterans for Peace. Um, wow, what did you make of this? Number one, when you hear that all of these top generals, the top military brass from all over the world are being called to Quantico, what does that make you think of?
Well, what it made me think of was what's called the Night of the Long Knives, when Hitler did the same thing with his top generals. And apparently, the only difference between Trump and HEGSETH's meeting and Adolf Hitler's was Hitler used the occasion to kill a lot of the generals that he felt were not loyal to him. I guess we're not quite to that stage, but part of the reason for this meeting that HEGSETH and Trump had was to reinforce the idea that you have to be loyal to the whims and the prejudices of the overweight commander in chief and Pete HEGSETH. And it's frightening, really. It's another part of the effort to reinforce white supremacy in the United States. I mean, when you look at all of the things that are happening, starting to rename some of the military bases after Confederate generals, it goes on and on and on. And the trying to get rid of DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion in the military. I'd like to just point out one thing that's a huge danger here is that I don't know what the current numbers are, but when I was director of Veterans for Peace about 15 years ago, the figures were 1 in 3 women got raped in the military. Mm-hmm. 1 in 3. Now, they were at that time burdened with having to go up the chain of command to make a complaint. Well, most of the time, the people in the chain of command were the offenders. So there has been some improvement. I don't know what the current numbers are, but there has been some improvement, at least in the process, to where people, and not just women, but men, making complaints of sexual assault and rape don't have to go up the chain of command, and there has been some protection for victims of military sexual trauma. So, all of this stuff is going to go by the boards, and we're going to be marching back to the Stone Age. And one final thing that you mentioned, the rules of engagement. And frankly, I don't know. Trump was saying that we're hobbled on the battlefield by these ridiculous rules of engagement. And I don't know
what did he mean by that?
Well, I mean, there are rules of engagement. Soldiers are supposed to be limited to certain things even when they're in battle, like don't start killing all the civilians within range. And clearly, neither Trump nor HEGSETH are very aware of the experience of soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan who said that the terms of engagement were simply bullshit because the local commanders would tell them, depending on how the commander felt that day or what sort of psychosis he or she had, that the rules of engagement are off. There are no rules of engagement. And so they would wind up doing things like shooting 360. If somebody in their convoy got shot, they would just open up and shoot everything that was within range of their weaponry. So, the controls on the military have been minimal at best, and these two men are marching as fast as they can back to the Stone Age.
Well, I did, of course, go to Military Times magazine, and the sexual assault, the prevalence of it is quite astonishing in the military. You are absolutely right. There were more than 75,500 cases reported just in 2021 alone, higher than the Pentagon's estimate of 35,000. That's more than twice the number. And 24% of women report sexual assault. Mind you, that's the women who report it. We don't know what the actual figures are. And
we'll know even less when these guys get done with it because they don't want to know. They want to. they want to put people in a position of not having an outlet for their complaints without having recriminations.
Well, what does it mean when the secretary said that to the generals? Well, if you disagree with anything that I'm saying, then you just need to leave now.
Yeah.
What is that the way this is supposed to work in the military? Okay. I mean,
They're supposed to obey the Constitution, and maybe what HEGSETH is saying is, if you don't mind trampling on the Constitution, you can stick around. But if you think we ought to obey the Constitution, then maybe you can leave.
okay. Well, Attorney Mark Fancher, what did you make of we're talking about, of what we heard today? Um, you know, if you don't agree with what I'm saying about dudes in dresses, about women serving, because he really does not believe women should be in combat, um, and on and on and on he goes. What did you make of what he was saying today? And what did you make of just number one, pulling all of the military brass, not all, but so many of the top military brass from all over the world to Quantico, Virginia? What did you make of that?
Well, I think I want to put it in a little bit of context. I've never uh, made any secret of the fact that I don't like military, I don't like militarism, because historically the U.S. military has been used for purposes of advancing the cause of imperialism. It's intervened in places where it has no business intervening, usually for the purpose of enriching multinational corporations, the military industrial complex. I could go on and on about the evils of the military, but at the same time, I have to pause and step back and look at the individuals who populate the military and have great compassion and sympathy for them and a high level of respect for them, because a large number of them are people who, because of where they were raised, the things that they were told when they were growing up, the ways in which they've been socialized, have come to believe that the most noble thing that they can do, the most selfless thing that they can do, is to put their lives on the line for their communities and for their fellow citizens and human beings. And for these individuals, I almost shed a tear because their situation is so complex. They go into the military with the idea of trying to live up to everything that they've been told, particularly a young man should do, which is to stand up, be responsible, defend his community. And they're looking for opportunities to do that. But then when they get in the military, what happens to them, even in other eras when they've been sent to fight wars for big corporations, is that they've not been allowed to do that at all. I mean, they've been betrayed because they've been told that you put your life on the line for big oil and for other major corporations and for imperialism. And now it's even worse because they're not even being sent overseas. They're being asked to take on missions where they're going to go into the streets of the United States and to perceive and to treat those that they pledged to protect as the enemy. How confusing must be? That how frustrating it must be to say that what I signed on for was to protect my fellow citizens, the people that I love, and what they're asking me to do is to regard them as an enemy, and not only as an enemy, but as people that I should train on. That these are people who I should practice on, so that I can go and engage in other types of missions elsewhere, probably against people who are as defenseless and who are as innocent as these people who are my fellow citizens. Um, and so when you see people put in those kinds of situations, and then however many of them are mobilized for what happened today, And they have standing before them, preaching to them, some punk, who probably doesn't have the guts to go one on one with any of them, who spent much of his time hanging out in bars and chasing women, and has ruined everything that he's managed, and they know he has no business running the military and giving them orders, and then going on this type of ridiculous, insane rant. And then you have to wonder, what are they thinking? I mean, I didn't sign on for this. And then you look at career military people who have advanced to the highest levels. Many of them probably actually maybe being wounded in action, having made tremendous sacrifices with respect to moving their families around all over the world, and not being present very often in their kids' lives, and making all kinds of compromises and sacrifices to their personal lives, and then having them fat shamed and being preached to about wokeness and things that have absolutely no relevance to what they're doing, and many of them having personally had the experience, the rich experience of serving with, both in combat and not in combat, with the most capable of women, the most capable of people who are being condemned and shamed by these two losers who are talking to them. I mean, it's just really hard to fathom. And so when we begin to see, uh, military veterans who come out of service with PTSD and other things, we have to wonder whether all of that is as a result of their combat service. I mean, I think you could get PTSD just from sitting through what these people had to sit through this afternoon. I wasn't even there, and I've got it.
Well, will help me to understand. I mean, do you have it, Mike Ferner? I mean, just as a veteran, as someone who has served, if you had been sitting in uniform in that room, how would you feel? And more to the point, if you heard the president say that the American people are going to be your practice run, I'm going to send you out into the United States, and you're going to learn how to do battle by doing battle on them.
Yeah. Well, let's just say I wouldn't have made it to the rank of brigadier general in the military.
Well, no. That's important. Why would you have not made it? Because there is a mindset, and there are.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me, how do you get to what is the mindset, just generally speaking, of a brigadier general?
Well, the mindset of anybody who stays in the military, regardless of their rank, is that, put it this way, what Mark said earlier about the reasons some people join the military are for good reasons. They feel like they're going to be serving their country. They're trying to get an education, on and on and on. There's a lot of good reasons. Some psychopaths join the military because they would like to get a chance to kill people, but that is probably extremely few in number. So people who are going to make a career out of the military, if nothing else, they have got to get used to following orders. And one of the things that anybody in the military is supposed to do, by virtue of the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Constitution, is to refuse illegal orders. That's one of the things Veterans for Peace is mobilizing to get out information to active duty members right now, that they have the duty to refuse illegal orders, for the very fact of what you mentioned earlier about the military being sent to learn urban warfare in the cities of America. So, if you can put up for 20 or 30 years with always following orders, and still maintain a degree of integrity, I say, God bless you. I don't know how you do it, because when you are in a situation where you've got to follow orders, no matter what those are, I just can't see how you can keep your soul. And I know some people in the military, even among the generals' ranks, are concerned about what they're told to do, and some of them resign. I mean, we've seen that happen over and over. But not enough of them speak out until after they retire, and that's a shame.
Mark Fancher, help me to understand Posse Comitatus. What is that, and how did it come into being?
Well, basically, there are restrictions and limits on what the U.S. military can do and where it can be deployed. There are occasions when it's necessary to deploy the military domestically in cases where the country is under attack by foreign forces or external forces. It can be deployed in cases when there are domestic riots, disturbances, and insurrections. Extreme cases, extreme situations where it's necessary to deploy troops domestically. But for the most part, they're not supposed to be on U.S. soil, engaging in warfare, acts of warfare. And I think that that's where the big controversy has focused in recent times, when the president has talked so consistently about the need to use these troops, on U.S. streets for various reasons. And when he's taken it to a new level, I mean, up to now, he's talked about using them for purposes of deterring crime, putting them on the streets of Washington, D.C. or in other cities so that just their mere presence would deter crime. But now to take it to another level where he's talking about using them to wage military attacks against the enemy within, whoever that might be, some vague, amorphous concept called Antifa, I guess. I don't know. I don't know where their office is, where their training grounds are, their headquarters. I don't know how. And see, I would like to know that.
I would too. I mean, I'm like, who are they? What do they do?
Yeah, but
because they've had such heavy police penetration that I don't know who they are. I don't know what Mike Ferner. That's true. I mean, that's been found to be the case.
Yeah.
That I don't know who or what they are. I mean, are they provocateurs? Have they been?
Well, I know an Antifa person, but he doesn't know who any of the other Antifa people are. So
Okay.
if he doesn't, how does the president? I mean, how does the military? How are they supposed to? So,
and they don't. And I'm sure you probably. I'll make the leap that you probably agree with this, Mark. That they don't care. I mean, it's just another. It's like terrorism. It's just a broad brush that they can paint people with. And if they get the public to get behind that, then that's the next victim, whether it's a group of people or an individual. And that's what we have to object to and have to fight. So, it's fascism, and it's getting more obvious every single day.
Well, I mean, what does it mean when he talks about the enemy within? I mean, I think we need to listen to everything.
He's talking about people like you and me and Mark. That's who he's talking about, Santita. We are the enemies that they are trying to expose to public disdain and official oppression.
And what's more is he's trying to set the stage for that occasion that he keeps hoping for, when he says something so outrageous and so provocative that the three of us, with thousands of other like-minded people, spill out into the streets to complain about it. And he characterizes that as the type of domestic insurrection that allows for him to order the military to wipe us all out.
You were about to say, Mike?
Well, it's you just go back to Nazi Germany, and the old saying about first they came for the Jews, and then they came for the trade union people, and then they came for on and on and on, and that's exactly what we're seeing. It starts with the undocumented, so let's ship them all out of the country, and then anybody who protests if they have a green card, and if people in this country who feel somewhat protected or insulated from this think that this isn't going to come down on their heads at some point as well, they are living in a dream world.
But I'm wondering if we're not already all the way down, moving down this slippery slope. We're having the ICE raids in Chicago, and the president, in addition to ICE, many of whom are masked, and I don't know what their rules of engagement are, because they attack protesters, or certainly they respond violently. They've not even been trained to de-escalate. It seems that when they're engaged with a very not always hostile but excited public, they don't know how to de-escalate that, Mike. They don't. And now they're going to bring the military in to accompany ICE.
And these right wingers from Trump on down are so expert at playing the victim. We've seen it happen over and over again, where these crazy Antifas or communists or whatever today's current title of scorn is, they're killing us. They're making our lives miserable, and on and on and on. And I've been out in the street and have seen the police, and I haven't experienced the military at this point, but I've seen what police can do if they don't feel like the rules of engagement apply to them, for example. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a restraint that the people, that the demonstrators and the activists show over and over and over again. I mean, it's not unsimilar to how I would imagine a young black person walking out on the street and getting hassled continually on a daily basis and having to bite their tongue and keep their rage inside. And if they ever let loose of that, then good luck.
Let me go through a few of these comments, because I think that I would love to get your feedback. Dave Dowling, and Dave is up in Canada, but he tunes in. He's part of the family every day. He said that military event today disrespected the military, the flag, the Constitution, and the United States of America. What a horrible event. What horrid speeches. And he continued, the president ranted on and on and on. That was surprising. Wanting to use the USA to train USA troops for war on American people is a horrible idea. But Heather Hill for governor, thank you for being with us again, Heather. She said, as the mother of a U.S. Army air assault graduate, I concurred with most of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's remarks as he addressed the generals and flag officers at Quantico, Virginia. Just like I always tell my kids, you have to remember who you are. We must remember who we are. We are the best. We are the strongest. We are the most powerful. We are America. Our soldiers should be held in the highest esteem while also adhering to rigorous dress code standards and maintaining optimal, and that trailed off. I'm sorry, didn't see more, Heather, but so what do you think of what she said? Anyone want to take a crack at it?
Go ahead, Mark. I'm going to bite my tongue for a minute. Well, I think that's an example of what we were talking about in terms of the good intentions of people who are in the military or who are family of military. I mean, there is a mindset, there is a pride, but I think that it can get misdirected. It can be taken so far to the point where it becomes almost a cult-like commitment to things that are not necessarily in the best interests of the country as a whole. To continue to engage in this talk about, we are the most important, we are the best, and to even take it to a point of jingoism sometimes, can cause us to lose sight of the fact that it's not just about us. It's not just about the U.S. military. It's not just about the U.S. That everybody in the world is a child of God. He loves us all the same. And while the idea behind the military is to protect us, from those who would like to do us harm, more important than that is reaching out and trying to establish bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood with everybody so that the military becomes irrelevant. And so, it's one thing to have pride in self and pride in the military, but when a level of hatred enters into that picture, which is what Hegseth did, he's not just talking about good grooming and discipline. He's talking about hating people because of their body shape. He's talking about hating people because of because they may be part of the LGBTQ community. He's talking about hating people that he describes as woke, which is people who don't necessarily perceive the world or see the world through the same prism that he sees it. When you start dividing people, when you start hating people, when you start ridiculing people, when you begin marginalizing people, that's not consistent with military pride or military discipline as it has been presented. That's really more along the lines of let's groom this force of people to be sycophants, to be blind followers of the supreme leader, Donald J. Trump, and I, I am his right hand man, Pete Hegseth, and you will do what we do based on how we perceive the world, and we see the world through the lens of hatred, and we see the world through the lens of division, and that's not healthy.
Well, Dave Dowling, again, said President Trump's rhetoric-laden speech proves he is getting the military trained to go to war against leftists, to your point, Mike Ferner. What will that look like? Because we've lived through that before. Even though socially many Black people are not on the left, we are considered the left because we've asked for our rights. We've demanded not to be enslaved. We've demanded decent housing. We've demanded well-paying jobs. That makes you a leftist, okay? So what does this look like if people are being deployed, if our neighbors and friends are being deployed on the ground? I mean, what does that say when you have? I mean, Mark said, I feel for these people, and I do, because people are being asked to go to war on American soil. What does that look like? I mean, how do you instruct people? I mean, what are they telling everybody?
I think if you want to get an idea what that looks like, have an honest conversation with somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam, and you'll see what happens when you live in a culture that routinely and methodically debases and dehumanizes people, and anybody that is supposed to be the enemy receives that dehumanization effort that is extremely well practiced and scientific practically. And you see what the results are, because and it's all we can do is hope that there are enough members of the military in this country who will speak out and follow their conscience as human beings. If they don't, they're going to do the same thing here that we've done to people in different parts of the world who have been declared the enemy. And they are declared the enemy usually because they are sitting in a country with resources that we want. And we need to get rid of their government if that government is refusing to allow us to exploit those resources.
Are you alluding to Venezuela?
Yeah,
Libya?
fill in the blank, Venezuela, Iran, it goes on and on and on. And so the domestic equivalent of that is you've got to come up with some BS reason, like, it's always to spread freedom and democracy, why we invade other countries. We're always spreading it, freedom and democracy. So I don't know what the BS rationale would be here. It could be something like addressing people in the military. You have to prevent the deterioration of America. You have to join with us to prevent the no good nicks from ruining our culture and debasing our system. It could be any number of crazy things. And you get people that have been through boot camp and know what it's like to get stripped down to nothing and built back up in any way that the military wants to build them back up. And you're going to get people that are going to do all crazy sorts of things. And God help us if there aren't enough men and women in that service who are willing to stand up. I got out as a conscientious objector because I couldn't bear what we were doing in Vietnam any longer. And it's not easy, but we have to hope that there are enough people that still have enough human compassion and enough integrity that they're going to be willing to tell their commanders to take a hike.
Well, please go on.
Yeah, I want to suggest the possibility that while Trump may be somewhat concerned about the left, I think he's really concerned about the right, because they have demonstrated their willingness to take up arms and to aggressively engage law enforcement and anybody else that stands in their way. And I think that he becomes increasingly nervous when he hears more and more grumbling among the MAGA base about the failures that he's having in advancing the agenda that he promised to advance, in fulfilling the promises that he promised, for dodging every effort to release the Epstein files, for making their quality of life worse, not better, economically, socially, and otherwise. And if they get angry enough, and I think he's afraid that they're going to get angry enough, they will come gunning for him.
Good point, Mark.
I think he's really sort of laying the foundation for militarizing the cities, so that he can suppress all of that once that uprising starts.
Well, I think you're making the point that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been making. She said, look, she announced, I am not suicidal. And she corrected Steve Bannon in an interview. You can tell when people are being managed when people give you the bear hug, Mike Ferner and Mark Fancher, because she has veered off script. I don't know if she ever was really on script, because she corrected Steve Bannon, who talked about President Trump helping her to get elected. She said, no, he did not. She said, I won my primary without his endorsement. He came and endorsed me after he saw that I won. And so she's been pushing on Gaza. She's been pushing on the Epstein files. And now she is saying, you know what? What did she say? I told them, you didn't get me elected. I do not work for you. I quote, I work for my district. And I think that is very, very important, because she is saying that I'm not suicidal and I am not playing with you. And increasingly, she's saying on the microphone what a lot of people saying behind closed doors. She's saying up front, because they're not going to push up against her at her town hall meetings the way they're pushing up against many of her colleagues. And I think, quite frankly, for her, she's doing that on principle. I really do. I don't think that, I don't have to agree with her politics, but I think, I think that she's genuine about where she is. And because some people entered into this looking for something very different, and they're not getting that now. They feel that way about the Democrats too. Look, even though Republicans are polling better than Democrats, they're both polling poorly. Americans are sick of them all. And 20 years ago, the director of national intelligence said that the economic inequality in America was going to lead to basically devastating consequences socially, social upheaval. And here we are. And so I think to Mark's point, and honestly, I think to your point, Mike Ferner, um, I think they see something. They know that. They saw that with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was taking a pivot from the script. I mean, let's be honest now. They continue to put this on the leftist, which is a shell game. No, their base is upset with them. All you have to do is look at the town hall meetings, the Republican town hall meetings. They are off the chain. They're so raucous that the Speaker of the House, who is Republican, told his caucus, "Don't have any more meetings."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you talk about the Republicans' town hall meetings. I wonder if they're having any these days.
You know what? They're having some because people are now they're rolling up on folks' offices. I mean, we are living in. You can't call any of this. You really really can't. I mean, when I called my mother and said there was a raid 5 blocks from my apartment on my street, right on Lakeshore Drive. Yeah, y'all know where I kind of live now. Okay, 5 blocks up, which is just a few blocks away from my old place where my parents are staying. I said, "It is here." She said, "Then you need to be careful because if they're doing sweeps, if they think that you have any hint of anything," she said, "you better make it clear that you speak English because I'm here to tell you, they will sweep you up. They've been sweeping up Americans, everybody. I keep trying to tell you all, look, nobody's safe here." So help me to understand what it is. How are we supposed to respond to this? Because correctional officer for the lockdown does say that soldiers learn early that the system can't be bucked. But is that really American, Mike? I mean, aren't you, as an American and as a human being, and I want you to speak to this too, Mike and Mark. Mike and Mark. Mike, first you. If you feel that something is wrong, do you not have an obligation like Pat Tillman, may he rest in peace, to say, "I'm going to confront this when I go home"? And he made no secret of it. He did. Well, he also didn't make it home. He was shot and killed, friendly fire, in front of his brother. What? I'll never forget that. His brother was riding up in the car behind him as he's watching his brother get shot to death. Help me, Mike. I need to understand what we're looking at.
And his brother hasn't stopped talking about it since then. Well, yeah, to your point of can the system be bucked, or do people have a responsibility to buck the system? And I've already said, absolutely. If you don't understand that responsibility, you will wind up doing some terrible things that you will not be able to forget the rest of your life. And you will incur all sorts of harm on people who don't deserve it, because the people who are calling the shots are compassionless, and they have motives for what they do that have nothing to do with the common good or with the decency of human nature or any of that stuff. They're out to get more power and more money. And if you don't obey that, if you're in the military and you don't obey it, you get disciplined or you have to get out. Now, I said, I got out as a conscientious objector, and a lot of people who were in the military around the time I went to Canada. And I just hope that, again, I'll say it again, that the people who are in the military now, please understand you have a duty to disobey illegal orders.
Why do you say that? Is that written or?
Yeah. It's
really?
in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Yeah, you are not so well. They don't state it that clearly, but you're not supposed to obey an unlawful order, which is the reverse of saying you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
In the intake process, are you told that, or is that?
Oh, hell no. No.
Okay.
No,
Okay, I
no,
just
you're
wanted to make sure. I wanted.
yeah. Yeah, it's like when the Marines when you go through Marine boot camp, you always hear about Smedley Butler. He
War's a
uh,
racket.
well, that's what he said, but that's not the part of Smedley Butler you hear. You hear
What
about
do you
his
hear?
you hear his 2 Medal of Honors that he got putting down the people in Mexico for Standard Oil, and wherever he got the second one, I don't know. But that's what you hear about is this glorious hero, the most decorated soldier, the most highly decorated soldier in the history of the country. But of course, they don't tell you anything about
Wait a
war
minute.
as a rat.
Tell them what he did after he had accrued all of these honors. What did he? He wrote a book.
Yeah. It's a slim book. You might call it a pamphlet almost, but it's called War as a Racket, and he named names. He said I was a gangster for capitalism. I helped restore Nicaragua to the Brown Brothers investment firm. I helped restore Standard Oil to China. And he just goes on and on and on, all the countries around the world that he himself was directly involved in leading troops to put down popular uprisings where people were saying, we're tired of having U.S. corporations suck the life out of us. And that's what the Marines are used for. That's what the military is used for. It is a violent tool that the people who run this country feel free to use anytime anybody around the world starts speaking up about a demand for justice. And what we've been talking about here is that same approach is going to be brought down on people in this country for demanding justice.
Well, let me just say, Heather Hill, you've been quite active today, and let me just kind of wrap up what you've been saying. You said your son is active military, and you do not want people that are not physically, mentally, emotionally fit in battle with him. We have to remember that our military is here to protect us, and they protect each other. But is that what they do, Mike? I
It's a
mean, really,
dream. That is, and I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to, but I'll just say this quickly. God bless you, Heather, but you're living in a dream world. Okay. The military is not there to protect us. The military is there. They are the iron fist inside the velvet glove that whenever U.S. corporations don't get what they want somewhere around the world, we send in the Marines. And we're told all this nonsense about freedom and democracy and on and on and on. It's got nothing to do with it. So, I hope your son has a decent life in the military. But if he's got a conscience and if he's learned anything about love and compassion from his mother, he very well may decide at some point that he's been snookered.
Mark Fancher?
No, I agree with all of that, and I think that if we really stop and think about it, the idea of defending the country against attackers rests on the idea that there are people who are out to get us, that there are enemies that want to attack us. And there are probably some, but if you really dig down and look at why they want to attack us, usually it's because of what we have done to them. And the strategy for making the military obsolete, which is what I would think that people of goodwill would want to do, is to just go through the world and make friends with everybody. There are so many impoverished regions throughout the world where if we went in with honest efforts to help build them up, to provide them with assistance and aid and food and shelter and clothing, we've got trillions of dollars that we spend on the military. If we redirected a lot of that to helping build up the world, to go into the poorest regions, the most, ravaged regions, and to build them up, then when you have people who are hell-bent on destroying America, if you want to use the term terrorist, that's fine. And they go into these regions and they say, I got a proposition for you. What we want to do is we want to go over and bomb America. The response that you're going to get is, why bomb America? They gave me this house. They gave me this food. They helped me start a business. They helped me do this. Why do I want to? You would eliminate the potential recruits for those who want to do harm to America. But
But
it's easy. It's easy to recruit people when these people who are trying to recruit them are able to go in and to say, you know, the drones that came through here and wiped out your children in the name of trying to wipe out terrorism, they came from the United States. And we're going to give you a chance to go back and strike back at them. Are you on board with that? They say, heck yeah, I'm on board with that. Where do I sign up?
yeah, yeah, we've created more enemies in the counterinsurgency nonsense that we've done in just a couple of places, Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, how long are you going to have your foot on the neck of people before you have a blowback? I mean, it's just one page after another out of history. And I want to give you a quick example of what Mark was saying about how we could be generating goodwill. I went to Central America with Veterans for Peace quite a few years ago in the 80s. And it was around the time when we were funding the Contras in Nicaragua, who were wiping out villages and killing people who were for the Sandinistas. It's a time when we were funding the same kind of activity in Guatemala and in El Salvador, where we were always, every time, on the side of the wealthy and the landowners. And we were in a van and we were driving through Guatemala, through these little villages, and there you could see people that were just absolutely dirt poor. And we are told in this country that we are giving the military aid to these countries to tamp down communists, when in fact what we're doing is giving military aid to those governments to tamp down people who want land reform and are tired of United Fruit making tons of money and they get nothing for their resources. And it occurred to me, if we really would quit talking out of both sides of our mouth, a pittance of what we're spending on the military would give everybody in Guatemala, or pick a country, give everybody clean water. And as Mark was saying, you do something like that, and you're not going to have to worry about people wanting to be against you and having all these enemies all over the world. But that's not what we're doing there anyway. We're there to protect the U.S. corporations that are making money off of these folks, and they know it.
And that's why I brought up the example of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look, I am very clear on where I disagree and agree with people. That having been said, if I agree with you on something, let's work together on that. Ron Paul said that.
Mm-hmm.
He said we create more offense than we do defending ourselves. So, God bless you. I promise you, I want your son to be safe. I do. That having been said, there's a woman who created Mother's Day for peace. And after the Civil War, which we have not gotten over more than 150 years later, she wrote a poem beseeching all mothers of the world to end all wars for all times. She said, I will not send my child into war to unlearn all of the Christian values that I taught him. And I pray that if my Confederate child goes into Union territory, that a mother will take care of him. And I pray that if the Union child goes into Confederate territory, that another mother will have mercy on somebody's child. And women did that. So at some point, everybody, what are we doing? What are we doing? And I think we need to really, really look at why, Smedley Butler, it's amazing that he's part of the intake process when he's written this book, because I have the book. It is a pamphlet, but he meant it. War is a racket. That's what he calls it. He said, basically, I was a gangster for capitalism. And I'm just saying, everybody, we keep trying to take everybody's resources. Dr. King told us one day you're going to roll up on some little teeny weeny country that's going to bring you to your knees, America. I hope it doesn't come to that. I really hope that it doesn't come to that. Mark and Mike, I want to get 1 minute apiece from you to close us out and to give us something to think about as we, I mean, I think just as we have this moment. Mark Fancher.
Well, I think that we're all presented with the challenge of listening to our conscience during this period. And I think that the challenge is greater for some of us than for others. And probably the challenge is greatest for those who are in the military. I, as Mike said, they have an obligation to disobey unlawful orders. And will they be able to summon up the courage to do that? I think that if they step back and they look at the people who they're being asked to potentially kill, and they're weighing that against what that means to them, what it means for their soul. And then they think about the fact that they're going to be asked to kill or be killed in other circumstances and in other situations. Do they want to risk the consequences of doing what's right? Or do they want to suffer the consequences for doing what's wrong? And we can only hope that they'll make the right choice when they're faced with that. And I think we need to have some real heart-to-heart conversations with people who we know in the military about making those kinds of choices. They're signing up to put their lives on the line anyway. Do you want to put your life on the line to do what's right and what God wants you to do? Or do you want to put your life on the line and give it away for major corporations and capitalists?
Mike Ferner.
Agree with that 100%, Mark. Yes, that is always been necessary, and it's becoming more so every day. And I think to move the focus off the people in the military for just a minute, I'd like to end with saying that it's people who have the freedom of not being in the military and the freedom that we're supposed to be exercising as citizens of this country, that we have got to, just as Mark is saying, hope that the members of the military make those hard decisions. Those of us that are not in the military have, I don't know how to say this any more politely, get off our butts and start taking stands and getting in the street and actively opposing and standing up and telling the people who are running this country that they're not going to get over on us. Because if we keep waiting, because me right here personally, nothing's happening to me, that's a recipe for disaster. So I just hope that as we are supporting people in the military to make the right decisions, that those of us who have a greater freedom will use that and not just watch it drain away.
Well, and you have the right to ask why all of these the top military personnel in the world were brought here. Why? What are they planning? What are they doing? Pete Hegseth is limiting the information that's coming out of the Pentagon. Otherwise, you have your press credentials removed. You need to ask questions. You need to ask questions. And Heather, I pray for your son. I pray for all people of the military. I've got 2 grandparents who are buried in Arlington today. I hear you. That having been said, what would America be like? My mother has said, these are her parents. She said, if you knew that you could get your health taken care of here in the United States, what if we had a Mayo Clinic in every city, a Cleveland Clinic in every city? If this was
and it was free,
yeah, for free. Yeah. I mean, where you just knew that if you wanted to get well in the world, you come here. If you knew that you wanted to get a great education, you come here. America would be safer than any place on earth.
But it's the fear. It's the fear that we've been talking about that is engendered between the other and us. That is what enables the dictators and the totalitarians like Trump. That's what enables them to make their case and to succeed, is because they generate this fear between us.
Well, let us grow up in our politics and embrace each other. We can only move together, move ahead together. What did they say? If you want to go far, uh, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, we have to go together. Think about that. Let's talk about ICE. They're on the south side of Chicago, conducting raids. Now the president is saying that he's going to deploy the military to Chicago to protect ICE,
Mhm.
and he's going to deploy this in other cities. On top of what he said today, uh, when he said that what, we're going to use the military, and we're going to use the American people upon whom they can train. Wow. Think about that, everybody. It's happening in real time. Pay attention.
Mhm.
Pay attention. Veterans for Peace, Mike Ferner, all my love to you. The
Thank you.
brilliant attorney Mark Fancher, all my love to you. Everybody, tune in to the Santita Jackson shows. We talk about ICE. And I'm going to have a Omar Fateh. That's right. The Democratic, well, he should be the Democratic nominee. He sure did win the primary. And yet, the Democrats will not endorse him. That's what's happening in New York. He wins as a Democrat, and yet the Democrats won't endorse him. So what does that say about the party? Think about that, everybody. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment.